And welcome back again. Yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander of Keeping It Honest. We don't just keep it real, we don't just keep it simple, we keep it honest. Thank you for supporting us in our show. You have any questions or comments, you can email yours truly. It's ParkerMan2011 at gmail.com, ParkerMan2011 at gmail.com. Telephone number. You can leave a voicemail, 216-702-3718, 216-702-3718. If you've watched our show or some of our shorts, you know we try to do things with a Parker twist. We try to do the left side, we try to do the right side, and hopefully by the end of the program, you've decided that we were fair and balanced, really, before there was fair and balance. I thank you for supporting the show. What a crazy, excuse me, world it is. All the news that is happening. We decided to do this live show today just to catch up on some things. We haven't done a live show in a little bit. We've been doing some take ones, we've been doing some long forms, we've been doing some short forms. We've been doing some of the shows that we think that you wanted to see. So we thank you for supporting us. So, man, Trump, convicted felon. You know, it's interesting when they put something on you, they identify you before they give your name. So if you're going to do something in your life, you kind of got to make sure that you do kind of the right things. Because before it was what, former President Donald Trump? Now is it convicted felon, former president, or former president and convicted felon Donald Trump? So what do you think about that? If you're for Trump or against Trump, do you think he deserves to go to jail? Do you think he will go to jail? We're going to talk about that a little bit. We're also going to talk about some of the shows that we have done, some of the topics that we've discussed. If you have anything, you can contact yours truly, and we can include it. And also some shows that you might like to see sometime in the future. So let's talk about this Donald Trump thing. So, you know, recently he became a convicted felon. And what does that mean when you're a president? Huh? So this made me think, now that he's a convicted felon, is he going to be looking out for more felons? Supposedly, when he was charged, he raised a lot of money because of that. Are a lot of people looking at him and saying, wow, he's really one of us? I mean, really, in this bizarre world, we have a president that goes back and forth as far as, is he too old? Is he not too old? He's doing a lot of appearances now, campaigning now, technically, and he's almost looking kind of good. But isn't it bad when you've got two presidents that are literally in their 80s and late 70s, and these are the only two that you can find across the whole country to take care of our country? Are they really one-term presidents? So, what are felons barred from doing? And if you're a felon too, are you looking to see if Trump is getting the same rights that you are? So, felons, now that he's a convicted felon, it varies by state by state. So, this is what he is barred from doing. In New York, where he was convicted, there are collateral consequences of being convicted as a felon. So, felons in New York cannot hold many public offices, including elected positions. So, in New York, technically, he couldn't be mayor or governor. But Trump is no longer a New York resident or citizen since he's there so much. People think he lives in New York. No, he's in Florida now. So in Florida, felons, they lose their civil rights, including the ability to hold public office and serve on a jury. So he can't run in Florida. He can't hold office in Florida or New York. But there's nothing in the Constitution that doesn't say he can't run for president. Isn't that crazy? He can't run for office in New York. He can't run for office in Florida for, city or federal, but he can run for president. Wow. So will he be able to get his rights back then as a felon? And if you're a felon, you're looking at this and you're probably wondering, well, again, I never got my rights back because I know in some states, as a felon, you can't vote. So in New York, a felon can apply. This is called a certificate of good conduct to restore all the rights after a certain period of time. The charges against Trump, they say, are Class E felonies, for which the period is 3 years. Some people think because he's a felon that it's a big deal. I mean, it is in some ways, especially if you are a felon. But for these charges, I'm not an attorney. I'm just reading this, and this is from CNN. He has small charges. Now, Florida requires felons to apply for clemency through a special board. But in the case of out-of-state convictions like Trump, it defers to the state where the person was convicted. So again, all this is going to go to New York to see what he can do if he can get this taken off his records in about 3 years. If I'm correct, he's 78 now, and he's going to be doing all this while running. Another question. So if he is convicted, because he is convicted, but if he's reelected, could he pardon himself? Now, can you pardon yourself? So in this case, you can. Presidents have the power to issue pardons for federal offenses. So he was convicted of a felony in New York. Okay, but it wasn't a federal offense, which is interesting. So if it was a federal offense, he'd probably have a chance to pardon himself. How do you feel about that? I get in office and I pardon me. Or, what's his name? Joe Biden could pardon him. Now, the state of New York could also pardon him, but that state's governor is a Democrat, Kathy Hochul. She has praised his conviction. So, I don't think he's going to get a pardon from her. Felons, we hear about this. They can't vote. Now, why exactly can they vote? So in Trump's case, it says most likely Trump is a Florida resident. So listen to this. And Florida defers to New York law on the question of felony voting. In New York, felons can vote as long as they are not incarcerated. So you can be an incarcerated felon, or you can be a felon that's not in jail. But in New York, you can vote. Interesting one coming up. Will Trump get prison time? So his sentencing is July 11th. This is 4 days before the Republican National Convention coming up. So he's going to get sentenced, and then 4 days later, he's going to be at this convention. Now, the judge could either say, you're going to have to do a little time, but we'll do it after the election. So if you do it after the election, are you doing it after he becomes president? Then he has to go to jail, or if he's a regular citizen and he has to go to jail. So you think in some ways that they would have done the sentencing maybe after the election, because then if he's a president, then they can prepare for that. But if he's a regular citizen, then it's like, well, come on down, let's go to jail. So the judge could technically give, you think about this, Trump prison time. Felony falsifying business records can be punishable with up to 4 years in prison. But is that felony that he did, is that a big deal? Okay. So he's been convicted of Class E felonies, and this is the lowest level in New York. He's also a first-time offender. Well, that we know of. So the judge could take into account that Trump has repeatedly not listened to this gag order because he's told Trump, look, I need you not to talk. And he keeps defying this. He's done it about 10 times. So if the judge told us not to talk and we talked, wouldn't we be in jail? So why hasn't this judge put Trump in jail? Some people say that this judge is a lenient kind of judge, so he may not even give Trump any jail time, but maybe probation, whatever that means. And speaking of this felony charge, I thought this part was interesting. So what exactly is this conviction of Donald Trump about? Is it about the Stormy Daniels? I mean, really, how many people across the country really care about Stormy Daniels? Do we really care about this hush money fund case? If it was taken out of campaign money, then that may be a little bit different. I think that's what they were trying to decide. And Trump, up to the last minute, still said he was innocent. And what do you think? Do you think he should be charged? So here we go. Why weren't these charges against Trump brought years ago? So the hush money payoff, it took place just before the 2016 election. Now, this is like what, 8 years ago. The fact of the payments was discovered in 2018, 2 years later. So federal prosecutors, they decided not to pursue charges against Trump related to the payments. And when this guy got in, this DA, Alvin Bragg, he said he was going to go after Trump. He announced the charges in April 2023. Some people say that Bragg has got an agenda because when you're saying you're running for office to imprison somebody, and Fani Willis also said the same thing when she got in office, that she's going to get in and she's going to pursue Donald Trump. Yeah, maybe the interference over there in Atlanta, that's probably more important because you're trying to change votes for any type of election than hush money from Stormy Daniels. So my thing is, did he fool around or did he not fool around? Well, he's got 34 counts saying that he did something. So was the crime that he committed technically misdemeanors? How did it turn to felonies? Why not prosecute him for those crimes? So this is how they did it too. So technically falsifying business records is a misdemeanor in New York unless the crime is committed with intent to commit another crime. So you do this crime and then you say, you know what? I'm doing this crime so I can do this other crime. And that's what turns into felonies in New York. And that's what some people are fighting. So if he does get jail time, would he have security around? Do you think you'd have security around if you know you were going to jail? Or if you've been in jail, have you had security? Well, because he's a president, that security would be there. So if he does have to go to jail for like, let's say 3 days, he's there for 3 days. Is security right there with him in jail? Are they spending that? Or are they spending it outside the jail cell? Stuff's never happened before. Okay, so we have to stay tuned for that. So are you happy that Trump's in jail? Are you not happy that he's in jail? Let me know. Drop me a line. Leave a voicemail. Text me, 216-702-3718, 216-702-3718. Email, parkerman2011@gmail.com, parkerman2011@gmail.com. Keeping it simple, yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander. Some of the most interesting things that we've had on these shows. I've had a couple of people running for president on this show. Dr. Cornel West, who's running. He's been through the Green Party. Man, now he's in his own independent campaign. But he's still out there, third party candidate. Interesting guy. Dr. Shiva. We know him as a man that invented the email over the years. And he's been very controversial. Jessica, I'm sorry, Jasmine Sherman, she's on the show. And we have some controversial topics with her too, as far as what she would do if she was running for president. And we're going to have a couple more people on the show before the election comes up to let you decide. And I tell people too, I always say this. Here's a pen. Here's a mouse. There's my phone. These three things are running for president. Let's say these three things have been two things first. Pen and my mouse. You're always going to vote for the pen because you're of that demographic. You're always going to vote for the mouse because you're of that demographic. But you're not satisfied with neither one. So let's say this phone comes in. And you're like, wow, you know what? I kind of like this phone. That is really good. I'm going to put my vote to that phone. But will it make a difference? So do you vote for your heart or do you vote for your mind? That's where we at today because there's a lot of candidates running. There should be more better candidates, more qualified candidates, unfortunately. I believe that in society, people are placed in their positions. Conspiracy, yeah. My background's in also politics. I ran for Congress and run for a couple of things in office. And I tell people, if you don't like who's in office, then you run because you can. Or you get somebody else to run. Don't let society place people in office to get the rules the way that they want because they do that. And I will probably run again. But I would suggest if you don't like who's in office, you run too. So those have been some of my most fascinating shows, interviewing people like that. The Fani Willis trial. A very interesting lady. I don't understand why churches are kissing her behind and praising her when she is a supposed adulteress. She may be good in what she does in her professional life, but her personal life, spiritually, that's pretty sad. I know we all are human. So my question is, when somebody's doing something good, and then you find out they're doing something bad, does that erase the good that they were doing? Fani Willis, she's up for re-election, and she's going to win. Make no mistake about it. Her goal is, she says, to go after Trump, and she's like a female Trump. Nothing touches her. But I don't see humbleness in what she does. And she feels like her ex-boyfriend and partner, you know it, Nathan Wade, neither one of them feel like they've done anything bad. Even though they were fooling around while he was married. Whether he was married where he still was close to his wife or married in name only, he still was married. Interesting case. Speaking of case, the judge, Scott McAfee, he won. So is it going to be McAfee again? And Fani, everybody's trying to disbar her against Trump or with Trump. Is it going to be a repeat? I think it is. Hold your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Speaking of ride, Drake and Lamar. What a crazy ride that has been. Two hip hop moguls beefing. And it's interesting because of technology now, one person will write a song about the other person. And then 10 minutes later, that other person will write a song about him. And because technology, they just keep going faster and faster. Back in the old days, it was Snoop, it was Tupac, and it was Biggie. And it took a minute for the songs to come out, but they did. But now songs are just coming out like that. And speaking of hip hop, Diddy, woe is Diddy. Do we feel sorry for what he is involved in? My personal thing is that I've always felt that Diddy was involved in something. It's interesting because a lot of the um, musicians, singers, rappers from the 80s are in trouble today, 30 years later. How many of these people that we looked up to, that we enjoyed, are still out here where maybe they shouldn't be with all the power that they have? Wow. And I've shown recently commencement speeches. I like going back on things and people can say, wow, that guy said that. Would you believe that? That's how he felt. I did a commencement speech about Seinfeld, and people messaged me big time on Seinfeld's commencement speech. Most of them said that he wasn't funny. How dare he when he was going after a 17-year-old girl, and that he's kind of cruel. He made this joke about the people that died in that submarine, and I just thought it was just too soon. And the joke was pretty much titled "Pay Attention," meaning, for example, don't go in a submarine if the driving stick is like a Game Boy stick. Pay attention. If you see a ship down there underwater, maybe don't go down there where that ship is. And he did the joke. Nobody booed, which I was surprised at the commencement speech. But a lot of the viewers who saw the clip, they were really upset at Seinfeld. Harrison Butker, the football kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs, he did a speech and he pretty much said a commencement speech how, women, you're graduating from college, know your place. If you don't get a job in the career you want, what's more important is that you have a career as a housewife. And he said a couple other things, but he incensed a lot of people where football now is attracting a lot of women. And the wrong people to hurt is the women because they're the ones that's watching the games now because of Taylor Swift. So if you upset the women, they may say, we're not going to watch it. So the NFL has said, hey, you know what? That's what he says. We don't believe in that. He says that. So they're backing off a little bit. But I think it's kind of weasel of the NFL. But everybody has their own opinion of what they want to do. And I also aired P. Diddy's commencement that he did at Morehouse about 10 years ago. And he talked about faith and going after things and thanking his mom and just positive things. But he was talking about this to these people at Morehouse College at the same time that he was abusing Cassie. And we wonder, is this guy going to go to jail? Is he going to be a Weinstein or an Epstein? We'll call him Biddy Steinstein. Only time will tell. Do you look at him the same way too now? It's crazy how society is. Man. Another one of my things. I like doing shows on specific topics. Anniversary of O.J. Simpson. We went back and covered his life. How many people think that he did do the crime? A lot of people weren't upset that he died. Some people said finally. Some people said shed no tears. And some people thought it was sad. My very first show was about 27 kids missing in Cleveland, Ohio. In a 3-week span, 27 kids were missing. Nobody knows where they were at. People in the city said, they were just doing their own things in summertime and were reported but weren't reported found. But that was my first show, 27 kids missing. One of my popular shows was Candace Owens. She's one where, whether you like her or not, she is or was a trailblazer. She's been going through some controversy. The funny thing is, as much as she hated, it seems, the things that African Americans did and sat around with non-African Americans and condemned African American things that they did at that same table, she was a part of that table. You know, when people say, I just want to be at that table, she was at the table with the Daily Wire's president and owners condemning certain actions of African Americans. And now that she's not at that table, they're condemning her. So some people say she spoke out. Some people say she was censored. But one thing I do is I give her credit because when somebody did confront her, she did invite them to be on her show. So we have to stay tuned what the next chapter is for Candace. What happens when freedom of the press? That's one thing I've always loved, is be able to say certain things. So there's a small paper, and it was raided by the FBI. And we had one of the owners on the show talking about this. So what happened? FBI raided this paper. And when they raided the paper, they took the computers, they took the phones, anything and everything in that paper. Went to the owner's house. And when they went to the owner's house and took all of her belongings, that had something to do with the paper, the next day she died. So the son who runs the paper spoke out about it and pretty much said when the FBI did that they killed her mom, his mom. And later on, not too long after that, they gave back all the stuff that they took and pretty much said that they're sorry. But at what cost? Because now she's gone. We had a good story talking about that. One of my most fascinating stories was this guy by the name of David Garrow. He's a Pulitzer Prize winning author. He wrote a couple books as an authoritative on Dr. King, and wrote a book about Barack Obama and the years right before he became president. And he made the rounds on some of the streaming shows and some regular shows, but he talked about Obama and how Obama had a plan that he put in place to be president, and how he had some sexual fantasies about same sex. And it made a lot of news. So he was on the show, we were talking about that, but then he also talked about Dr. King and how Dr. King was investigated by the FBI, and how they found out that he had previous relationships with other women, and wrote stories on that. And he pretty much was blackballed to a point. So we talked about that. And so there's this saying that I think when the legend conflicts with the truth, you print the legend. So how many people out there, role models, that you have liked for years and thought they were squeaky clean and found out that they weren't? And it was a very interesting conversation about Dr. King. Questions, comments, things you'd like to see on the show, topics you'd like us to explore. 216-702-3718, 216-702-3718. Email address, parkerman2011 @gmail.com, parkerman2011 @gmail.com. This is, again, Crazy World. Keeping it real, keeping it simple, keeping it honest. I thank you for watching the show. Continue to watch the show. Tell your friends, subscribe. In the past, recently, we've had a lot of people subscribe to the show. We started out really small. Some people say we're small now, but we've had a lot of interesting people on the show. And I like talk politics. I like talking religion. I like talking science fiction. I like talking what you like talking. Some of my favorite shows, some of my favorite streaming shows. And one reason I like streaming is because my background is in multimedia, regular media, mainstream. And I got out of that and got into streaming because I found out that you have an opportunity to say more things. You still, if you're a journalist, have to go by the rules of a journalist, which I do. But then you really get to speak out the truth. And one thing that journalists do once they get onto streaming is they kind of forget that. They kind of get off the guardrails. Streaming gives you a chance. It just opens up the guardrails even more to bring in more information. And I tell people, no matter what, when we speak of things on our shows, use us as cliff notes and just make sure that you go back and try to confirm what we're talking about. Because there's a lot of shows out there. Anybody can be a content provider. But how many people out there are going after the news and trying to tell the different stories? And that's what we try to do. You may not like everything that we do, but at the end of the day, we do give you the truth. So I'm going to tell you some of the shows since I've been doing this that I really liked. One show is called Savvy. And Savvy is Savvy. Okay, she's a lady that puts a lot of effort into her work. I was really enamored when I saw her show. She gives a lot of stories, a lot of information. She investigates a lot of stuff. I think it's a good show to watch. Not saying that you agree with some of these shows that I'm giving you, but if you watch them, you can tell that they do put a lot of hard work. Tim Black. Now, he's an interesting guy. He talks about don't let anybody take your cornbread away. That's his slogan. I like his show because he does give another spin. He has Dr. West on there a bunch of times because he is a Dr. West fan. But he's not liked by some people too. But I give him credit for getting his story out. Chris Cuomo, the former anchor of CNN, he's kind of changed since he went from CNN to streaming. He's a little bit more out there in his views. He tries to still be journalistically correct, but I think sometimes he misses the boat. There's one show. This guy, he's got like 5 other people on his show. It's called PBD. And he does investigate. He has a lot of power. He has a lot of good guests on his show. He has a lot of questions. And I think he's fair. So check him out. Pan African Strikes Back. And this guy, I like him because he's a guy that does things. Literally, he can talk about African American things. He can talk about social events. He can talk about worldly events. Very smart man. You know her, you love her, you just can't get enough of her. Megyn Kelly. Everybody knows her. I've gotten a couple guests from her show. Of course, she's a very smart person. She's had her highs and lows. She was on Fox, she was on NBC, and now she's doing her show. One of the most popular podcasts out there, but a good show. Shannon and Ocho. All right. Football players, 2 former football players who do a show called Nightcap, and it comes on, man, 12, maybe 11:30 at night, a couple times a week, and they talk sports, and they talk events, and they talk anything, and they give advice. It's a great show at the end of the day, and they have fun just to Sit back and relax. Dear Woke Christian, it's a show. If you're into religion and you're into um, news and politics, but with a spiritual slant, let's say like Fannie Willis being promoted by ministers when she was the one that supposedly had an affair. He will question that, but he'll put a biblical stance to it. Really good show. The lead attorney. Now this guy, he analyzes briefs, legal briefs, and he tries to put them in layman's terms. And I like it because I've learned a lot. I've tried to do some shows like the Cassie brief and also Fannie Willis. And I'll get the briefs and I'll try to break it down too so we can understand it. I'm not an attorney, but he was. And it's an enjoyable show. Not too long ago, he did a show where he was on air for about, 8 hours. He said it was the longest streaming show he's ever done. 8 hours. He was on from 11 at night till about 8 in the morning. And he talked about legal briefs. He talked to people. He gave advice. He had fun. And he really loves what he does. Agenda Free TV. This is one where this guy, he doesn't give any opinion whatsoever. He just talks about news. I don't know how he finds the time to do it, but he'll come on any late breaking news. He'll come on and he'll cover it journalistically. Okay. He's not personality driven. He's straight journalist. Okay. I don't know if he has a life because he's on and he's covering everything, but Agenda Free TV and Trish Reagan. I like her show because she's fun, she's relatable, she's simple, and she puts news in a way that we all can understand. So these are some of my favorite YouTube shows. And Coffee, I forgot his name now. He's an interesting guy because he's a guy that created Dilbert, and every day he comes on and he just talks. Well, he's very controversial too. He talks about all the news, and sometimes I think he says things just to be controversial. But these are some of the shows that I have watched since I've been doing this show. So I thank you for, giving me material from some of these shows to do my shows. And try not to see short forms, long forms, what days and times. Do you like a show that's overnight? Do you like a show that's newsy? Do you like a show that's more entertainment? What do you like? What do you like to see? Let me know. And we'll see about doing it. Because that's what we do. We do things with a Parker twist. Keeping it simple, keeping it real, keeping it honest. I did a show, Saluting Dads, because I was a single dad that raised 3 kids. And I can tell you, it was very hard. So I see that perspective. I'm a guy that have run for office and have had haters because I just keep it simple, keep it real, keep it honest. So I know some of the problems that people have out here and very relatable. So I try to call it like it is. And one of my favorite people is Cornel West, Dr. Cornel West. Was a guy I always wanted to interview years ago. Backgrounds in broadcasting, like I said. And was kind of intimidated years ago. And somebody came up to me after I started this YouTube show and said, hey, why don't you see about interviewing Dr. West? And I said, okay, well, let me see. And I was able to contact him, and I contacted him, which was interesting. And a couple hours later, they contacted me back. So kudos to you. And I tell people, you are only as important as you think you are. Remember that. Okay, because we all, like they say, we put our pants on same time, same way. Um, if you don't wear pants, I don't know, I guess I don't know what to say if you don't wear pants. But we're all the same, no matter what. Um, God humbles you. And if you think you have it all, or you think you have it worse, there are people who are worse than you, off than you. There are some people who are way better than you. But if you think you're better than other people, we got to use Puff Daddy right now. He's going through heck. Do we feel sorry for him? No. If he's guilty, we don't feel sorry for him. It seems like he's guilty in all of this. But people that have been around him, his enablers, you guys had to know he was doing some of the stuff. Come on. You think this is just Diddy coming out? There's going to be a lot more coming out. Okay. This has been a crazy year for comedians, for actors, for hip hop artists, for pastors. What do they say? Whatever's in the dark will come to light. That's what we're seeing. Stuff is coming to light. So I want you to let me know, if you can, what days and times you'd like to see us. You want us to do more live shows. Like I said, you can email us, you can get in contact with us and let us know. And we'll do it. I like putting stuff to a Parker twist. I like telling stories. And with the streaming, like I said, it gives you an opportunity to do a lot of different things. There's a lot of stories I'm going to be doing, a lot more interviews I'm going to be doing, and a lot of content. Do you like the shorts? I would like to do collaborations with some of the people out there in the streaming world. Everybody starts out small. Think of this as a business. Speaking of business, I have this Patreon page, and that's pretty much like a PBS page. You get on the page, and on that page, there's 3 tiers as far as what you can contribute. And what it is it's monthly tiers. They're not that high. And you get on and you say, wow, you know what? I do watch his show. I appreciate what he's doing, what he's trying to do. I'm going to be a part of his family and contribute to the Patreon page. That keeps us going. And that shows me, hey, you know what? People are really liking what we do, which I really appreciate. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to do this and to get stories out there that maybe people don't know about as we continue to grow, because we're growing because of you guys. And we're trying to figure out this YouTube thing. We can be on this journey together. So if anybody says, hey, you know what, I want to see about doing a collaboration with yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander, then you know how to contact me. Again, 216 702 3718, 216 702 3718. You can email me, parkerman2011 at gmail.com, parkerman2011 at gmail.com. We like putting stuff in a Parker twist. Doesn't matter what kind of story it is. If you think it's taboo, then bring it here and we will discuss it. That's our gift. So, in closing, tell your friends, keep subscribing. Let's keep building. I would not be able to be doing this if it wasn't for you guys. I'm Anthony Parker Alexander. Keep your head up. Never look down. Always believe in yourself. And therein will lie your answer. We don't just keep it simple. We don't just keep it real. We keep it honest. God bless.